If the structures in this map are smoother than we expect them to be, it means that Einstein's theory is wrong.
Submit, have I just gotten old all of a sudden? Hello, I'm Dr. Niall Jeffrey. Are you also from One Direction? Does dark matter matter? For the first time, dark matter has been mapped. Its distribution across the cosmos has been observed, although I use the word observed within certain limitations, because dark matter does not emit light, but it does affect gravity, so we sort of know it's there, but we don't see it as such. What does the discovery, or at least the mapping of dark matter mean for us? It's challenged to some of the assumptions about physics, well not physics actually, not assumptions, theories from Einstein. I reckon it's like that. It's not something that Einstein just assumed. It was a mathematical theorem of Einstein's that's being challenged by recent discoveries about the distribution of dark matter in our cosmos. What do we know? What do we not know? And what does what we not know mean about what we know and how we imagine reality? Let's work it out right now.
Dark matter, it's the most mysterious substance in the universe. Little is known about it. Scientists are pretty sure it exists, but still don't know what it is. Now they have created the largest ever distribution map of dark matter in the universe.
It's good that all this is happening at the same time as all these UFO revelations and discoveries. Jeremy Corbell's coming on Under the Skin soon to talk about those revelations in greater depth, because both of these subjects invite us to have a different perspective on reality. Dark matter, the discovery of the distribution of dark matter, the discovery, or at least the acknowledgement of potentially of life from other planets, solar systems, galaxies, however you want to understand it or speculate on it. Both of these things demonstrate to us that cultural life is a construction. The way that we see politics, the way that we organise nature, our relationship to the natural world, our relationships to one another are as a result of protocols that are to some degree imagined. Beyond life as hunter-gatherer tribes, which in itself I suppose was an evolution of being, I don't know, just apes hanging out, arboreal apes hanging out in trees. Once we came down from them trees and started doing shit different and organising political systems and social structures and agriculture and industry, etc, 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 then we're now living in an imaginary world made real. The discovery of something like dark matter reminds us that what is invisible, undetectable, is present, does have an impact, and how much the world that we live in, the world that governs and controls us, is a result of conjecture and assumption and is subject to change.
Look up at the skies and you see stars. But this telescope in the deserts of Chile is able to see the universe as it really is.
Don't make the same mistake again, as it really is. This time we actually have done it. No, this is be another one of those layers that is at some point in the future, if we continue to progress, we'll go, oh wow. The instruments through which we receive reality, even if they are amplified by scientific ingenuity, are still limited in themselves. We don't have different portals or sensory panels for data that is not within the sort of electromagnetic range or within the thermodynamic range. But this data, as the dark matter discovery suggests, may be out there.
It can't be seen, but this instrument can detect dark matter by the way it distorts starlight.
This is a map of matter in the universe.
And that's allowed astronomers to produce this map of how it's spread across the expanse of space.
It's an element of, unveiling mystery.
We need a scientist. Could he be sort of a German cliche? Yep, we got one of those.
Something you couldn't see before, and suddenly it's there. And you think, wow.
So what is dark matter, and where is it in space? Well, let's start off with our own sun. It's one of 100 billion stars that make up our galaxy.
It's weird, isn't it? Because you hear things like it's one of 100 billion stars, and you're sort of vaguely aware of knowing that from when you're like 9 or something. But you can't conceptualize the number 100 billion, can you? I can just about okay, so I got 3 oranges. Right, imagine 100 billion oranges. Yeah! Even in this room, there are profound mysteries taking place at the subparticular level of even the way that this information is being communicated. Think of the number of miracles that take place for this information to come out of this screen, into my mind, out of my mouth, into your brain. I mean, it's just sort of baffling if you were to get sort of subparticular about it. So I suppose dark matter is dealing with the boundary of knowledge for our whole species, not just for us as individuals. The boundary of where technology for observation currently exists. But what interests it for me, as a person that's long given up on trying to understand the sort of miracles of the world of physics, other than when it's been pre-chewed by Neil deGrasse Tyson or Brian Cox or whoever, is what does that suggest about reality itself and how we interact with reality and how we organise our lives? Because yes, we're living in limitless space, 100 billion suns, but we're also living on planet Earth in our communities with what's happening politically, culturally at the moment. Our response to coronavirus, our response to new forms of polemicism. How does this truth affect the way we live? Well, certainly one thing it does is it means we must examine our prejudices, examine our assumptions, even things that were sort of like laid on the line by Einstein. We're now like, oh, it turns out Einstein was wrong. Einstein is an actual byword for cleverness.
The Milky Way, which in turn is one of countless others throughout the universe. Dark matter permeates space, with galaxies like tiny gems on a tangled cosmic web.
Don't patronise me with your tiny gems on a cosmic web, mate. Still, there is a lack of nuance in language.
The bright areas are where dark matter is most concentrated, and it's here that galaxies form. But the map is not what astronomers expected. The matter should be slightly more clumped together.
This should be more clumped! It's amazing, isn't it? Like that. How can we possibly understand reality? We're still only dealing with what can be observed, even if observed means studying the impact of dark matter on light particles, which can be observed. And if the pattern of their movement is this pattern, it must mean that there's some sort of obstacle or interruption or disruption, and that we can calculate. And still a sort of a form of observation. What about what's going on? There's the problem of scale, isn't there? It's presumably the fact that we are this size means we understand reality from this perspective, but beings could be sort of smaller, bigger, not even centralized. What if you were a being that lived in the subparticular realm and quarks and photons and neutrinos were like planets? There's no reason at all to assume that our perspective in relation to our scale is in any way objective or absolute. In fact, how could it be when you're in the infinite? There is no sense of scale within the infinite. You have to kind of, in a sense, fractal your way out of that type of thinking and say, wow, there is no local, there is no center. The very nature of infinity tells you there can be no center, because wherever you are, it's going off limitlessly in every direction. So everything we assume to be real is up for debate, So the relatively, we contest and propose that social changes are radical, but they're like little mouse problems, aren't they? Whether or not to sort of, hey, why don't we just not have nations anymore and reorganise things? Hey, let's not have money and labour in that way. Let's try to organise technology not to benefit just a few people, but to benefit entire populations. Well, let's make sure that resources are shared in some way to protect a whole population. We're creating cultures to underwrite systems that benefit the people in dominant positions. That's what's currently happening, but it's all sort of just like a mad little balmy thing happening on a pebble. So we could just change it whenever we wanted to. I know you might think this sounds like sort of late night, sort of stoned talk, but actually the coronavirus has shown that you can introduce all kinds of regulation. And I did a live show yesterday, and everyone's got a mask on, everyone's sat in weird configurations across the room. Just 2 years ago, if I'd have seen that, I'd have gone, why is everyone wearing masks and why is this show not sold out? What the hell has happened to me? But now this. It's an organisation of a system. The resistance ultimately comes from sort of human emotion. This is what I think this stuff will eventually intersect with. And let me tell you now, it's based on nothing but a hunch. Consciousness is somehow connected to this. That other great mystery that cannot ever be resolved. Where does consciousness come from? We think it's neurological patterns, and when various systems and biochemistry cooperate, it creates as a byproduct consciousness. I'm not having it. I'm not having it. Consciousness is the crucible of all other phenomena, and in these mysteries we will discover the presence of consciousness, a relationship with consciousness. That's my made-up prediction.
Instead, it's smoother than predicted by Einstein's theory of general relativity, which helps determine how the matter should have spread out after the Big Bang.
If the structures in this map are smoother than we expect them to be, which is what the results seem to hint at, it means that Einstein's theory is wrong.
Is it me? Have I just gotten old all of a sudden? Is it me, or is this Dr. Niall Jeffrey off of Grange Hill or the Grassy Junior High? Hello, I'm Dr. Niall Jeffrey. Are you also from One Direction?
So you might think that that's a bad thing, that maybe, oh no, physics is broken. But for physicists, it's extremely exciting because it means that we can find out something new about the way the universe really is.
Building on the work of Einstein, Carlos Frenk was among a group of scientists that developed the current model of cosmology.
Hearing now that there may be something not quite right with the theory, well, it's very disconcerting, it's very alarming, and in a way frightening to see that maybe my whole life's work might crumble in front of me. But at the same time, it is immensely exciting.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because if you are one of the theorists behind it, that would be deeply conflicting. And I wonder how often these kind of ordinary human emotions are factors in the way that reality and data is governed. If this is someone that's working in a field as objective as physics and cosmology and still feeling the kind of emotions of, hold on a minute, I worked bloody hard on that. I know, that's all just made up. You might as well not have bothered. But imagine then when it's in the field of politics, sociology, economics, if it's like, hang on a minute, this isn't fair, this doesn't make sense. This has been written to advantage a certain strata of the population. Shut up! Shut up! This is my life's work, and my factory, and my office blocks, and my dominion over the farmland of America. People aren't just going to go, yeah, no, it's true, we better reorganise society now based on truth and veracity. That's why you need a spiritual perspective on reality, because it means that you deal with the energies competing within you. What energies are competing with you, i.e. that you're not just one person, you're a set of various impulses that can govern you at any time. Of course, there's sort of a degree of predictability in a human being. What you did yesterday, you might do today. The way you react in traffic yesterday, you might react in traffic tomorrow. But there's also the continual possibility of change. And also your behaviour is a result of conditioning. And your conditioning is based on layer after layer of accreted assumptions passed down through a culture, which, like our man there, we might discover are just based on nothing. Hey, it turns out this isn't the best way to organise a system. You know, think about the way people talk with certainty about capitalism, free market economics, all of these ideas. It's all just like little kids, because they're our man there at the forefront of like taking Einstein's work forward. It's just like, oh shit, man, the whole thing doesn't even make sense, buddy. You know, so like we're all operating in a raindrop. And like the idea that we're in there furiously competing with one another and fighting each other when we're basically the same organism, when we literally do come from, not only as a species, one common ancestor, but cosmologically from one common explosion in this localized part of the universe. Oughtn't we be organising our consciousness and perhaps more importantly our behaviour to be commensurate with this idea of oneness that's continually reiterated throughout the scientific world, and the humility of knowing that we're never far from a new frontier of being confronted once again with our ignorance? That's why dark matter matters. It teaches us that we know nothing except for love and kindness and compassion, simple Sesame Street ethics. Because so little is known, the things that you do know should be promoted to the absolute forefront of your values. And these are very simple and very beautiful things indeed. If you've enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you'd like to see more of. Sign up to my mailing list at russellbrand.com. I'm doing 20 live shows pretty soon, and I'd love you to come along. There's not that many tickets available because there's not that many shows, but it's post social distancing, so it'll be like a maskless bonanza. So come along to that. Sign up to the mailing list on russellbrand.com. Thanks.